All right. The last person who joined, I just want to confirm that you are okay with me using the name that you entered. Sunil. Okay. All right. Let me say this again. Welcome, everyone. This is Student Rising, our third session, our third installment. I'll share with you what we have done in the past a bit later. We are very appreciative that you are all joining us. My name is Bassam Haddad. I'm co-hosting this particular session with my brave and powerhouse colleagues, Jairo Funez and Muriam Davis, who will be working with us throughout this conversation. I am glad that all of you are safe and with us. Our appreciation for what you do is infinite. And as they used to say in Syria about the dictatorship of Hafez Assad, we are with you until the end of time and 2 weeks after that. So our appreciation is infinite. Plus, 2 weeks after that, you are in many ways, ways that I cannot always express, have been a guiding light for so many of us, including those of us who have been doing what you're doing for many, many decades. But kudos to you. You have been paving a path that is entirely new, not just in terms of the causes, because we all share these causes, but also in terms of how you're actually executing it. So a big word of appreciation from all of us here at Gaza and Context, at the Arab Studies Institute, at Jadaliyya, and at the 24 universities and research centers that have been supporting this, as well as the DMV Faculty for Justice in Palestine, and for Faculty for Academic Freedom in the DMV area, which is our main partner. As you all know, as everyone here joining us and watching, student protests against Israel's genocide in Gaza have engulfed campuses for the past several weeks. However, as the spring semester unwinds, new and old forms of protests are emerging and are resurfacing. For instance, on May 15th, the UAW 4811, representing 48,000 academic workers across the UC system, ended a strike authorization vote in solidarity with the pro-Palestinian protests, which Muriam Davis will share with us in just a moment. We host a number of students and faculty today, as well as in the coming weeks, to share with us how they are making sure that Gaza is continues to be centered, and how these actions continue to raise awareness on the one hand, but also make strides in terms of justice and social justice, as well as political justice in Palestine and, frankly, elsewhere. This series, Students Rising, as well as In Defense of Academic Freedom, which deals more with faculty. Jairo was one of the people that we featured because he was reprimanded and suspended because of his opposition to genocide. These series will continue, but will also expand to other causes that we will bridge with the Palestinian cause, given that so much of the foundations of all these different causes, especially in the global south, are united in many ways. So I'll stop here and I'll introduce my two remarkable co-hosts, Muriam Davis, who is a history professor at UCSC and is co-editor of the Maghreb page on Jadaliyya and has worked with Maghreb and many other publications as well as institutions, and has a remarkable record of publishing, as well as Jairo Funez, who joins us here from, he's an assistant professor of curriculum studies at Texas Tech University. His research is focused on decolonial thought and praxis, curriculum theory and knowledge production, critical ethnography and social movements in Latin America. He was suspended for speaking out against genocide and was later reinstated, which is unfortunate because, it's less dramatic now. I'm joking. Since his suspension, he has been organizing with ED, Scholars for Palestine, and FJP National, and its proactive defense, sorry, I lost my way. Proactive defense strategy of academic freedom. This is part of the FJP National. Welcome, Muriam and Jairo. I'll give you the floor to say a couple of words before we delve into addressing the various experiences, starting with Kylie. Can I use your name, Kylie? Okay, I thought so. With basically UNC Chapel Hill, then we will move to UCSC, and then to Brown. If the person from Brown can wait, let me know. You can text me on same through the same method that you have been. If you need to go earlier because of what you shared earlier, I can also bring you up earlier. So Muriam and Jairo, the floor is yours. Just to introduce yourself and say a couple of words that you want to open with.
Okay,
Sure,
I
I'll
guess I'll
start.
jump in.
Oh,
Oh,
okay, go ahead.
um, I'll just say that I'm here basically as somebody who's learned a lot from a series of strikes at UCSC, and hoping that many of us have done organizing around Palestine for a long time, and bringing that into conversation with labor and labor movements, and building off the power of the encampments to really organize, and also the return of the political strike. It's a really historic moment for us in the UCs to see the UAW take up a strike that has Palestine at the heart of it. So I won't say much other than to say I've learned a lot from the folks the UAW organizers on this call.
All right, so I just want to thank Bassam for first of all for inviting me to co-host this third episode of Student Rising, and I'm just really grateful to be here to listen to and learn from students who are the ones leading the path, as Bassam also stated. Here at Tech, it was students who showed the most support when faculty and colleagues were the most silent and are still silent. And so I'm immensely grateful for everything that you're doing, and for the very real risks that you're taking to speak out and organize against genocide. I think when we're analyzing or thinking about student movements, which is some of the work that I also do in Latin America, university student movements, there is how do we think about the material changes that need to take place in universities rather than these symbolic gestures that universities make. And so I'm looking forward to learning about this and your experiences in the encampments.
Thanks, folks. Let's get right to it because we have a lot of people joining us. We also have an encampment representative joining us from Finland because they called and they said they want to join us, and they shared a lot of their experiences with me online, and they're joining a little bit later because now their encampment is being attacked by pro-Zionist groups, kind of a similar situation, maybe not as harsh and violent as UCLA, but they are under attack, and they're going to try to make it in about 45 minutes. Let me start with the UNC Chapel Hill. We have with us Kylie Broderick, who is a proud graduate of the program in Middle East and Islamic Studies at George Mason Universities that I directed and founded at George Mason. And unfortunately, we produced someone like Kylie, who is now a powerhouse in so many ways, in so many places, including at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Kylie, I will let you share what you'd like to share, of course, but also I must say that Kylie did not start getting targeted now. Personally, she was under severe attack previously. Is it okay to say this, Kylie? We've said it before. That's why I'm asking posthumously. And she has been a target not just within UNC Chapel Hill, but also by the authorities, like Israeli authorities, through the embassy and beyond. So she has been she's an embattled student who not only took care of business and responded with the most principled stances and courage, but she was and is an inspiration to all of us. Kylie, the floor is yours. If you can tell us what's going on at UNC.
Well, thank you so much, Bassam. I can't live up to the bio you gave me. It's really good to meet all of my comrades on this call and be in the struggle with you. I think that the way that I will explain things is like the brief history that has occurred at UNC since the encampment began. But I'll say that I wasn't part of the encampment here at UNC. I currently live in Vancouver. and I came back because of the admin's response to the encampment. So these details up until April 30th are ones that I'm recounting from my comrades and friends who were brutalized by this administration. So I'll say that UNC, I believe, was the third university to make an encampment in the US. They made one on Friday the 19th that was supposed to just last the day. I'm not sure how many people saw, but they were pretty cheeky about it. The administration basically ordered folks to take down this encampment. And instead of taking down the encampment, they lifted it onto chairs because it was within compliance, malicious compliance, but compliance to do so. And then when they were told to move it, then they also marched around campus with the tents as a way of also maliciously complying. But they built a permanent encampment thereafter on Friday the 26th. And from all accounts of people who were in the encampment for the 4 days that it lasted, it was a beautiful space, much like all of our encampments have been, a place of community and envisioning the future, being together, resisting colonialism in the ways that are both beautiful and powerful. And the university brutally destroyed it early in the morning on April 30th. But that was not the final time that the administration brutalized students. Later that day, from accounts, SJP called for an emergency rally in support of the encampment that was torn down. And in that rally, autonomous student and society organizers took down the U.S. flag that was located in the area of campus where the encampment was. And when they took down the U.S. flag, they put up a Palestinian flag. And that so enraged the administration that the chancellor, Lee Roberts, personally led, like in front of them, like some kind of general, a platoon of riot cops to beat student protesters in order to merely put back up the flag. And in beating protesters, it was up until that point, some of the most severe police brutality on campus that I've ever personally seen. And thereafter, the administration's response has been to sort of just double down on this brutality. I'll say that there's also been a backdrop at UNC, much like other university campuses, of systematic Palestinian discrimination and racism. This is nothing new for the US as a settler colony and a racist institution to its core. And we have been organizing as SJP against this systematic discrimination in various ways, including the fact that we have filed a Title VI complaint that has turned into an investigation, which means that the government, the OCR office, found that the complaint had merit, that there is evidence of systematic discrimination on this campus, and that there is, like most places, a broader right-wing push here in North Carolina, much like of the kind that we've seen in places like Florida, which aims to eliminate everything from tenure, which they have successfully done, to making all financial decisions at the university be something that is irrespective of faculty and students, through board of trustees that are not democratically selected nor elected, and there are no recourses to speak to them. There's no institutional pathway to speak to the people who actually make our decisions at all. And finally, that the state is working in ways to criminalize protest writ large, right? For instance, just this past week, the right-wing legislature of North Carolina has now criminalized the wearing of masks in public at all, without there's no medical exemption at all. And so this is sort of part and parcel to what we can understand as like the breaking of everything, right? This is not just about Palestine, but Palestine undergirds all of it. Okay, so just skipping to the last part of this, which is what have we done since April 30th, which is when I flew in order to sort of escalate the push. The administration not only called upon a riot cop contingent to brutalize students, they also arrested and detained many students. And I have to be careful about the language here, but they also meted out academic punishments on many of the students. I'm sure many of us know what that's like, right? And have seen that on our own campuses. And so I have been here in order to sort of advance the struggle, make it so that it's not sustainable for the university to make these decisions. And we have done numerous things in order to do that. Some of them have been about just keeping the pressure up by doing direct actions, from calling rallies and marches. doing protests, interrupting meetings for Board of Trustees members because they should not be allowed to just make decisions and brutalize students without any recourse from us or any comment from us. We also called for a grade withholding action. Strikes are illegal in North Carolina. It's the worst labor state in the US, if you could believe it. And the grade withholding action was more or less successful. And hopefully it's something that we can build upon in the future using the lessons that y'all in the UCs can teach us from much more long-term labor movements that we hope to emulate here. Since then, though, the university continues to arrest students, detain students, and mete out academic punishments for students. And they have recently made clear through emails that they are going to continue to do so. They are not afraid of us. They are not afraid to look like brutalizers and tyrants, which is what they are. And so we will continue to move in ways that make this unsustainable in the future. Faculty and grad students have also stepped up, although not as much as undergrad students, and we hope to build upon that. But as the last thing that has happened recently is that this past Monday, the Board of Trustees had a closed session, which is outrageous. That a public office, publicly funded through my tax dollars, can have a closed session. And in this closed session, they called for the defunding of $2.3 million in DEI, which is all of the DEI funding that the university has. And they took that $2.3 million and put it right into the UNCPD. So they are very obviously signaling that they are interested in the end of any university programming that is meant to even the playing field for students of color and faculty of color, and instead are like quite literally using it to fund the security apparatus at this university. So those are sort of that's the space that we're in right now, and what we're hoping to move against going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Kylie. I really appreciate this, and I hope that you can join us next week or the week after, because we'd love to hear what consequences have taken place by then. Let's move to, I'll give the floor to Muriam to introduce the UCSC folks working on the labor strike. And just to be clear, we have a couple of situations in terms of timing. GMU would like to speak at around maximum in about 8 or 9 minutes. So if we can start the conversation with the USC folks, but then break, because there's another set of questions that talks about what next and so on.
Okay, great. I think that Isabel Kane is going to join us next from UCSC, grad worker in the Astronomy and Astrophysics Department, and organizes both with UAW 4811, but also with Researchers Against War, which I hope some of you are also plugged into.
Yeah, thank you, Miriam. And I'm so honored to be standing beside all of these amazing organizers today.
Your audio is very low, Isabel.
All right, I will try my hardest to project. So I want to introduce, there are 3 of us here from UCSC to talk about kind of different parts of the organizing that is built off of the global movement for a free Palestine that has been accelerated since October, culminating in this strike that we're preparing to go on, in response to, explicitly in response to the unfair labor practice filed by our union, in response to the police brutality and the repression of the pro-Palestinian encampments. But our story starts a little bit earlier. So on October 16th of this year, a call for solidarity came from the Palestinian General Federation of Trade Unions, End All Complicity, Stop Arming Israel. In this call to action, they specifically named military funding and military research as something that had to be intervened in part of this disarming of Israel. And we realized as graduate researchers and graduate workers in the university, we were positioned to intervene at the very top of the military supply chain, intervening in the research that is creating the more technologically advanced, more efficient killing machines of tomorrow. So we dug in a little bit. We tried to convince ourselves that we were onto something real. And we found that even if you just look at the US military, cut out, the Israeli military, only looking at the Department of Defense, the DoD pours $7.4 billion of funding each year into basic research in universities, not even weapons development, not even obviously like applied research. It is basic research at universities that is getting $7.4 billion per year. Of this, $294 million goes to the University of California system, and our campus, UC Santa Cruz, receives about $6 million of this per year, and that number is always going up. So this huge number is what convinced us that we were onto something real. This money goes on to support a real interesting range of research at these universities. So here at UC Santa Cruz, we mapped out not just how much money was coming into the university, but where it was going. We found 10 labs on our campus that have active DoD contracts and 18 more that have recently expired DoD contracts. And again, it spanned a wide range of innocuous research. So elephant seal behavior is a type of research that's on this list, obviously good for the world. But funding this basic research allows the DoD to launder its reputation and farm these scientists that are willing to go to bat for the DoD's reputation in public. And then there's the a little bit more obviously weaponizable stuff. The project that I will always pull out as an example is, quote, mathematical analysis of human response to millimeter wave heating. This is a project studying the effect of a weapon that is already in existence. It is called the Active Denial System, or ADS. Because of information being classified, it's difficult to say whether and where this weapon has been used, but it has been at least proposed for use, both in active combat and for controlling protesters at home. So we spent a long time after mapping how much funding is coming in, which specific labs it's going to, and which specific graduate workers that money supports. The three of us in this room spent a ton of time reaching out to these workers and just trying to get them to start these conversations in their own labs. You know, where does my funding come from? How do I, does my feeling about this change in the context of this genocide that is going on in Palestine? And, you know, over months and months, we kept striking out until we brought it back to our own departments and started these conversations with our own coworkers. So I'll tee it up to Becker to talk about that process in the physics department at UCSC.
Yeah, thank you so much, Isabel. Again, I'm Becker from the physics department at UC Santa Cruz. So after sort of
Becker, yes, if you can either turn something up or on your system or speak up a bit more, that would be wonderful. Louder.
Absolutely. Is this better? So essentially, after we reached out to external departments that do receive DoD funding, we realized that we need to kind of organize things again. Both Isabel and myself took this to our own departments, the ASTRO department and the physics department. And we started, mind you, at the time, this was a few months ago, at the time, talk about the issue in Gaza, talk about, you know, Palestine as a whole was quite rare and scarce in the department. And this is coming from departments where historically, you know, we have been told, you know, this is a controversial topic, we be talking about it in such departments. And so we started sort of reaching out to our one-on-one colleagues, one-on-one folks, and sort of built to a small little working group in the department where we started sort of coming up with ideas of how we want to approach this. One of the ideas that came about was, let's write a statement, and a statement basically sort of outlining the issue and what have you. And this initially kind of got some pushback amongst workers in that it could be just merely symbolic. So what we set forth to do was to sort of set a list of concrete demands that we could sort of ask and work together with faculty and staff in the department on achieving these demands. After the little group sort of met, we basically started reaching out to colleagues, and to our surprise, there was tremendous appetite to this in the department. We approached this with caution, given the rare talk about the issue of Palestine in the department. But to our surprise, there was absolutely a lot of appetite for this in the department, and people were eager to be talking about this. Essentially, we ended up writing the statement, and within the statement, we asked for 2 solid demands. One, full disclosure of funding resources um, for the research that happens, and 2, um, forgive me, there's someone has their mic unmuted, and it's a bit distracting. Thank you. So the first demand that we set forth was full disclosure of where the funding is coming from, and the second demand was for those that do want to divest and deviate from these militarized research projects. We want alternate sources of funding for those that do want to divest, and essentially. We took this statement out, and we were able to get about 60% of the department to sign the statement, and started sort of working with faculty members and staff and whatnot in order to figure out how we can achieve these demands on a department level. And I think this is sort of a good segue that kind of, we're actively working on this, but this is sort of a good segue to lead into, the strike stuff. So I'll hand it to you, Jack, to kind of push us in that direction right now.
Thanks so much, Becca and Isabel, and of course all the hosts, and to Jadaliyya for having us on this morning or afternoon if you're on the East Coast. So I'm just going to give a quick overview of what's going on right now in the UC with regards to the strike, and then just try and draw out a couple of thoughts or lessons or something like that for people like us who work at universities elsewhere in the country. So before this strike authorization vote sequence started, we were having very intensive deliberation on our campus about how to respond both to the student encampment movement as it was exploding through April, and also to the, Isabel mentioned this earlier, but there was a second call from the Palestinian General Federation of Trade Unions for solidarity action by workers on May Day and also on Nakba Day. So we had, as I say, very intensive deliberation, dozens and dozens of department meetings, and then a general assembly where we decided as a provisional measure to walk out on May Day in solidarity with the call, and then to continue formulating the kinds of demands that we would say are worthwhile and important to actually fight for as workers on our campus. As this was unfolding, just as a parallel thing, the events down at UCLA and UC San Diego unfolded. Perhaps listeners know them maybe even better than me, but in general, there was a vigilante attack on the encampment at LA, followed by a very violent police sweep, and then at San Diego, not long after, same thing, even with the involvement of Border Patrol down there. Lots of violence, lots of arrests, and this included many union members among lecturers, faculty, students, etc. So this was the basis for an unfair labor practice charge from our union against the university. You can't discipline workers engaging in peaceful protest like this. And this was the basis for our strike authorization vote. So this went out just this week. It was open from Monday to Wednesday, and it passed overwhelmingly. And the strike plan is, there's actually some news that came through right before we came on here. But the strike plan is a stand-up strike. This is in some ways, replicating what happened in the auto sector last year in the same union, the UAW, United Auto Workers, where certain plants went out on strike in a way to build pressure cumulatively. So we're going at this stage campus by campus, it seems, and our campus, UC Santa Cruz, it has just been announced will be standing up. That means striking this Monday. So that's some exciting news right there. So that's the broad outline. What I would say to those who are listening, who might be thinking about what they might do if they are workers at a university. I don't just mean grad workers, by the way. I mean lecturers, I mean instructors, I mean, frankly, anyone whose relation to the university is not only as a student. So organizing a strike is different to organizing other kinds of protests. In short, this is because you need very large buy-in. You have to be a large number of your workforce doing, and you're choosing from that set of people, a very specific set of people. And those people are brought together only because they work at the same place. They don't necessarily have the same politics. They don't necessarily have the same views. They just work at the same place. So if we were to look at the encampments that have spectacularly spread across the country here. On my campus, if only a small percentage of the students were agreed on the demands, the tactic, the plans, etc., it can be an extremely successful action. If only sort of 5%, let's say, of workers decided to take strike action, we would be fired and crushed immediately. This is not to say either is more important or better or anything like this, of course, just that they have very different conditions of success. And if you're seeking to organize one rather than the other, it behooves you to be really attentive to those differences. They also, of course, are moving in the same direction, have the same aims, and they can pull different levers, have different kinds of power. Another thing I'll say is that those departments, such as Isabel's and Becca's, they're already talking about Palestine. We're already doing the work of thinking about the connections of their workplace to the occupation. We're already having a discussion among people inside with whom they're connected in the workplace. They were in a far stronger position to jump in when this strike vote came around, when this sequence opened up. So there are two things that I think are important about that. The first is that there's an enormous difference if this conversation is happening among workers who are organically connected to each other at work. They don't just have some freak like me from the humanities calling around saying, like, you should care about this, this is really important, get involved, but that they're among people who they work with, who they know, who they respect. So it's not about, us raising their consciousness, but organic connections and discussion. So those, even at the level of different departments on our campus, those that were already doing this work were in a stronger position. And it's really worth realizing, I think, if you're elsewhere and not in a situation where there's a strike vote being called, for example. So if you are a worker, whether you're a university or elsewhere, that feeling you might have or fear you might have that you're just banging your head against the wall all the time, making very incremental progress at best, trying to talk about these issues, trying to get attention, trying to make movement. That's, I think, extremely normal and good and fine. And was certainly our experience for a long time as we were at this. While you're doing that, you are getting ready, whether you know it or not, whether other workers or not, you are getting ready to take much bigger action. If the moment unfolds, if something develops, you will be in a really strong position because of that conscientious, day in, day out, difficult, hard organizing work. And that is what needs to be going on all the time. So I'm going to say it's not a coincidence that, as I said earlier, 5 minutes before we jumped on this call, it was our campus that was called to go out on Monday. We've been doing the work. People have been talking about the issues. We're ready to go. Last thing I'll say is I just think and this is for workers everywhere, and particularly in the university perhaps, it's so essential we fight back right now. We're being disciplined, fired, arrested, beaten, and the university is a major flashpoint in this. And I expect, I don't think it's a terribly controversial or big prognostication to say that the outcome of this current sequence of struggle will reverberate for years to come. So it's really time to go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Becker and Isabel, as well as Jack, for what you have shared with us. Thanks, Muriam, for also leading the charge and being part of the labor strike situation at UCSC. If you can stay with us, the three of you, for a minute, and then I may ask someone to hop off so we can bring in other people actually in the next few minutes, if that's okay. But I need somebody to stay from UCSC if it's possible. We're going to go to George Mason University, to Nusayba, and then try to also circle back to Brown, right, Sharina, and then move from there. Nusayba, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so hi everyone. Just to kind of give an update of what's happened in the last 3 weeks. So Georgia, which was an encampment made by 8 universities that are part of the larger DMVSJ encampment at George Washington University on Thursday, April 25th, and it lasted just under 2 weeks. And then it was raided at around 3:30, 4 a.m. Just over a week ago on Wednesday, May 8th. It was violently raided by police. We had 32 students and community members arrested, and essentially all of our belongings, everything that was in the camp, whether it was, our tents or sleeping bags, to people's backpacks, to medicine, to laptops, iPads, like phones, wallets, passports, everything that was at the encampment, whether it was on the street or whether it was on Shohadat Square or University Yard, it was all destroyed. It was trashed. And much of it, specifically the technology and people's personal belongings like backpacks and wallets, were taken into either MPD, which is the DC Police Department's possession, or the GW Police Department's possession. And since the last week, students and the community members who have been arrested they had their arraignments over the last 2 days over charges of assault on police officers as well as trespassing. And we have seen some people get stay away orders from the general Foggy Bottom area, which includes students who have to be in that area and people who live in that area, which we know is not very realistic. And we have also seen, interestingly, that students that are not GW students are now facing academic probation and disciplinary action at their own universities for getting arrested and for being seen that they were involved at the encampment. So there is a collective clamping down coming on all of the universities in the area. There's already been heightened tensions from the administrations of local universities, making threats towards students if they were to hypothetically launch an encampment that wasn't even, a suggestion. We've also seen a crackdown on students at their local graduations in the DMV, from students being escorted out of their graduations, and some of them seem to be violating their probation orders. So it's a lot that's happening in the DMV, but the focus right now is on the students and community members that were arrested and facing court charges. I believe there's one more that was rescheduled after today. And yeah, it's although it was an effort that came from the DMV SJP coalition, but hosted at GW, this by no means is stopping the work that we're doing. As a collective, we feel that we're stronger than ever, and we feel that we're more empowered now, knowing the community that we have built between our students just across our varying SJP chapters, as well as, excuse me, all the faculty connections we've made to the local organizations and community members that we have built with. So although MPD and the GW administration did destroy and end the encampment, by no means is our work over. There's in no sense are we stopping the work we're doing. It was just a stop to the encampment because of, being forcibly removed. But yeah, I think energy is really, really, really high in the region, both for students and community members. And we're excited to see where this work takes us, even going into the summer. A lot of people are staying in the area, and we have a lot of people coming back into the area. So we'll see where this goes. There's not too much we can say on that. But yeah, it was a really, really good 3 weeks, and it was really, really disappointing to see how it was so brutally ended by MPD and GWPD.
Are you finished, or are you not connecting? Okay, well, let's go to Bashar also to talk a little bit about what is happening right now with the potentially the suspensions at GW. Okay, Bashar disappeared. Well, Bashar is calling from the car, which is okay. There we go. Bashar, are you with us, Habibi? Can you address the suspensions before you disappear again? Bashar, can you hear me? Can you talk? I can't hear you, Habibi. You're on mute from your side. لا حول ولا قوة. You're muted. All right. We're just going to have to try you again, Bashar. Is that okay? We cannot hear you. I cannot hear you. We cannot hear you. Until maybe you're driving or in an area that's not working very well, but we can see you, so we should be able to hear you if you turn your mic on. In the meantime, let's go to Sharina from Brown. Sharina, you have a ton of things to share with us, including some great news. Please, the floor is yours. And Jairo, please feel free to interject whenever you want in terms of questions or commentary you have for everyone here. Sharina, it's all you.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes, awesome. Hi, everyone. So good to be with you all today and to hear from other grads organizing their workplaces towards Palestinian liberation. It's a really exciting moment for Palestinian labor to be coming together like this. And I really, the divestment movement at Brown is a decade old. There's been concerted efforts amongst student organizers and graduate workers together to pressure and ultimately force, because that's the only way we're going to get any action from university leadership and the Brown Corporation, to force them to divest the endowment from all holdings in companies complicit in the illegal occupation of Palestine and now this genocidal onslaught in Gaza. So at Brown, we've kind of been ahead of the curve in terms of like collective action since October. There's been 2 sit-ins to the point of arrest. We had the first hunger strike that sort of started a litany of others at universities. And then after Columbia reignited the student intifada with their encampment, there was also an encampment erected on our campus that ultimately led to quite successful negotiations with the administration. So this was an undergraduate-led initiative, the encampment, but our union, the Graduate Labor Organization, was there every day with our canopy out, supporting and feeding and ultimately looking after the encampment community. And we had several members also encamping and playing crucial support roles like legal observing and marshalling throughout the action. But the undergraduate students were able to negotiate a deal with the administrators to have the corporation bound to a vote on divestment in October. And of course, like all negotiations, the timing and the outcome is ultimately inadequate to our demands, which are full divestment, but it's something that we're able to work with, and that the labor side of things, we're sort of picking up where the students left off to keep the pressure on the administration leading up to and into the corporation vote in October on divestment. But at Brown, in 2019, we already pursued the university's own internal bureaucratic system for divestment. So they have at Brown an ethical investments advisory committee. And so the case for divestment from Israeli occupation was brought to that committee. That committee was lobbied heavily by the Brown Divest Coalition of student and grad worker organizers, and they successfully got that committee to put forth a recommendation for divestment. They wrote a report. That report was delivered to the president. But mind you, this is an advisory committee, so the president of the university, Christina Paxson, was able to veto that recommendation, to define it as inadequate or insufficient in recognizing how divestment would alleviate the social harms caused by the identified corporations, which is frankly ridiculous given that the university has had divestment cases passed successfully before, whether it was tobacco or divestment from apartheid South Africa or an active case of divestment from Sudan going on since the Darfur genocide. So this was obviously unfairly rejected by the president, unilaterally decided by her that this recommendation would not go to the decision-making body of the university. And she's sort of tried to squash and just extinguish divestment actions, and has been unsuccessful in doing so. And especially since October, the movement has had a resurgence at Brown. These are the biggest protests we've seen on university campuses since Vietnam, like at Brown and other places. And from our perspective is the Graduate Labor Organization and also the Palestine Solidarity Caucus, which myself and others founded during the 2021 Unity Intifada. We're going to leverage all the power possible that we have to win on divestment, and labor is such a huge part of that. And, graduate work is so undervalued in the university as is. So it's a fight that, contrary to some people's opinions that unions should be bread and butter, like straight up working conditions, like healthcare, wages, etc. Labor is the cause of hope in the world, is how the old union adage goes. And when labor is connected to social justice, it just strengthens our ability to organize for better working conditions for all. And we're really seeing the mass mobilization of our membership who really care about this issue. And when I say Palestine is my working conditions, I mean that because I'm a scholar of Palestine, I'm a Palestinian. But other workers have stepped up to say, well, if our employer is using the wealth generated from our labor to invest in genocide, Palestine is my working conditions too, right? If the conditions of our work are colonial and genocidal, we have a right to refuse based on those grounds. And so that's the position that my union has taken for several years. And then, the university sanctions protests that it can tolerate. But if they don't like your protests, then they start to persecute those who are carrying out those protests. So we're seeing that as well. And our union has 4 unfair labor practice charges with the NLRB that we're pursuing. And I'm very confident that we'll make a very strong case in regards to the violation of our federal labor rights to protected concerted activity, including gathering in non-work areas. So we're allowed to be on the main green, no matter if the institution likes what we're saying or not. And we're, constitutionally allowed to protest. So we have, several of these charges active right now leading into the October vote. And we know, and we're really, watching closely and truly inspired by UAW 4811. And I think now is the time to leverage our power, and our power is union power. And I think the students are also looking to organize labor on campuses for action and response, because there's been such an institutional failure on the part of the administration and the university to provide any sort of moral guidance or clarity or leadership on the question of Palestine. So I think labor has sort of stepped in to fill that void. And it's a really exciting moment for Palestinian liberation organizing and for labor organizing coalescing together. And we're part of the Labor for Palestine National Network as well. So, have been following all labor organizing on Palestine very closely. And October should be interesting at Brown. Thank you.
Thank you very much. VCU, can you hang on for 1 second? Can you hang on for a couple minutes? Okay, Jairo, all you.
Thank you, everyone, for all those insights. I have one question related to the UC strike. In a recent article, Heather Hansen, a spokesperson for the UC office of the president, said the union was setting a dangerous precedent that would introduce non-labor issues into labor agreements, and that there could be quote-unquote corrective actions for union members who will participate in the strike. In other words, introducing this inconvenient issue, quote-unquote issue of genocide and settler colonial dispossession should not be introduced into labor issues and labor agreements. So can you talk some more about this claim that non-labor issues or so-called non-labor issues should not be introduced into labor agreements and thus justify a strike? And another second question would be, what connections should be made for those listening in and for other students interested in this? What connections should be made between academic freedom, labor agreements, unfair labor practices, and divestment.
If it's okay, I'll say just a couple things about this. I think it's important to learn that important to note that almost every claim in that messaging was, if not a lie, at least very inaccurate, and including, as you say in the question, that this is not a non-labor issue. Fundamentally, I agree with the university that it sets a precedent, and I think this is what the struggle is over. It's a precedent that they can't just respond violently with police when there is peaceful protest, when there are criticisms of administration. It's a precedent that workers at a university should have some say over where the money is invested. And this is what is at stake here. And this is why the messaging that they're putting out is so ominous. The corrective measures, I mean, this is yet another ULP. This is a strike that has protections. The UC, unfortunately for it, is not an authority that can declare a strike illegal. That is the purview of the Public Employees Relation Board. So even to say that is yet another ULP. And the connections to our workplace, to your second question, I think we've heard some of this already, but so many workers in labs across this country are working on jobs that are funded by agencies like the DoD, and they're doing work that sometimes, as Isabel said earlier, actually has no obvious connection to to weaponry or the sort of dual use function of it, how it might be used. Is not clear, or at least not obvious to the person doing some small part of this in their lab. But for us, this is a question of worker control. We are the ones who are doing this work. We are the ones that are producing this research, this knowledge, and we ought to have a real say over its use, its application. So these are directly issues of workers, of worker control, of what we can do and say in our workplace. And it's just time to fight back. They can't keep acting like this. And the more they threaten us, the more they show their oppressive face, the more they deepen this crisis, the more people it brings in, and the bigger precedent that we're going to set, that it's workers and students at the university who decide how the place is run, how you can respond to criticism, how you can respond to protest, and how the money is invested.
Thank you so much, and I would love for Sharina and others to stay on, because we do have questions. Can you stay on a little bit so we can? We have folks also coming in from other universities in just a moment. UCSC folks, if we can have one person stay, that would be awesome. I understand from Muriam that some of you might have to go, but if one person can stay, that'll be great. If you cannot, thank you so much for what you have done and shared with us here. Thanks from everyone. Actually, I'm getting a lot of comments from different places regarding everyone's work here. So it's I can't share them here because there are too many, and we do have to move forward. But there's a lot of support and respect for everyone here. Needless to say, let me move very quickly to VCU. I think the VCU person here is the youngest, and and among the bravest. So tell us what happened at VCU.
Okay, so admittedly, I wasn't part of the negotiating side or anything, so I can't speak too much on that. But as a student that was just part of the encampment, I can just talk about the experience a little bit more. It was set up on the 29th, so a little bit after a lot of the other ones, but not too long after. It started being set up around 9 or 10 a.m. right next to our school's library. And from the beginning, there was already help from people in the community that were providing food, providing water, providing therapy kind of services for a lot of students that were struggling mentally because of obviously everything that's going on in Gaza and Palestine at the moment. And it was really nice to see. In a couple hours, it was already set up banners all around. There were almost at least 100 people, I would say. And like all the other encampments across the country, it was peaceful. We made our demands very clear: divestment of funds, disclosure of funds as well, and additionally ending the study abroad program that VCU has in Israel. So, very standard stuff, very peaceful stuff. Um, Students were there basically all day. Around 7 or 8, there started whispers of cops coming, what to do. Um, Organizers started gathering people into like crowds in order to confront the cops were they to come. We didn't get any warning from the school or anything that they were going to send cops or any type of message to disperse or anything. We actually found out that there were cops coming from bike scouts that saw them get into an unmarked white van. So they let us know a little bit before they came, so we had a little bit of time to set up in like a line with some pallets in front of us. But a bus came, um, and like I don't know, probably like 50 around police officers in riot gear and riot shields just started streaming out. Not even really saying anything to us, just prepping for like 10, 15 minutes. And then they had the standard like 1 or 2 announcements from their poor quality megaphones just to, say that they told us to leave, I guess. And then they immediately started moving in with undue force, as you could probably imagine. They used pepper spray and tear gas canisters. This was all caught as well on camera by legal observers all around, as well as security cameras from the library, as we were right next to it. I think all in all, they cleared the grass area where we were in about like 20, 30 minutes. And I know I was personally one of 13 total people arrested. Um, they were kind of just grabbing whoever they could. I saw some big guy just kind of going ham on this little girl and just tried to get in his way to stop him from hurting her or anything. And then they just grabbed me. That was about it. They took me and the others to our student commons area and held us there for a couple hours. And by the time we left there to get to the station for processing, the entire grass was cleared. They had taken all the tents, all the student belongings. They'd taken it back to the station. Nobody was allowed to get their things for a couple of days. And yeah, it was pretty disheartening, especially the next day, seeing what VCU had sent out, the message from the president and from the school itself saying that the encampment was disturbing student finals, students studying for finals. We were causing a disruption of campus life, I guess, which couldn't be farther from the truth, honestly. There were people that were leaving the library to come and study out on the lawn with us to join us. So it was just kind of very disappointing how quickly they tried to sweep it under the rug and just move on.
Thank you so much, VCU. Those of you, I mean, there are tons of things online, but I saw the video of the actual arrest, and it was brutal. VCU rep here is being very modest, but I saw the video, and he was very brave. Okay, and this is a recurring story everywhere. All right. Thank you very much. You can stay with us. I know you have to go at some point. We have with us folks joining right now from UCSC. Can you just say hi? Okay.
Sorry. Hi.
All right. So we're going to go to Sunil from New School and then get back to you if that's okay. And then we're going to ask everybody about the future. Sunil, you are hailing from the new school where the first encampment for faculty took place, but also you have a lot to share with us. So the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. So grateful to be here with all of you. Solidarity to all of you. We at the Rafat Al Arir Faculty Solidarity Encampment started our encampment 9 days ago, and specifically in response to the police repression by the administration that was 3 weeks ago to this date. 2 weeks ago to this date. Where 45 students were arrested in their sleep with no notice by police in full riot gear, called upon by the administration, previously having stated in writing that they would not arrest any students without written warning. This was a moment that came after the student encampment, which was started on April 21st, where they escalated significantly by taking over what's called Kerry Hall, renamed Bassam Hall, and where they blockaded the entrances to student dorms. We knew that this had a direct effect because the president of the school was trying to negotiate early into the morning. And after the president and the board of trustees went to sleep, then that is when the police were called. And at that point, early in the morning, the NYPD decided to sweep both encampments. Students had taken two separate buildings. And since we do not have like a centralized campus, and so the decision to sweep both encampments was made by the NYPD, and there was a video circulated of our president, Donna Shalala, who essentially just let them do whatever they wanted. And so in response to that, faculty immediately mobilized and organized to create what became the first faculty solidarity encampment in the country. Hopefully not the last. As I mentioned, we started as a way to show to the administration and to really the world that student voices cannot be suppressed, that this does not go without action by the rest of the community, such as faculty, as well as alumni, as well as staff and workers, and really the broader community, to show that when one of our voices gets silenced, we have a responsibility and a duty to come back even louder. And so what we were able to do is provide sort of more visibility as faculty to the struggle in which we, as a sort of faculty for justice in Palestine, have been supportive every step of the way with the Students for Justice in Palestine at the New School, and echo each one of their 5 demands. The first being divestment from the 13 identified weapons and surveillance manufacturers, weapons manufacturers and surveillance companies that the New School is financially embedded in. And so essentially we were able to, over the course of 9 days, continue to escalate and demand that negotiations resume, because negotiations after the police raid had effectively stalled, and we had not heard any word. And so when we started the faculty encampment and started making headlines, we knew that this was a great cover for the students to begin resuming their struggle and to have our support in whatever way that we could provide it. It has been 9 beautiful and exhausting days, and we continue into the early mornings every night, pressuring the administration, making progress in the ways that we can. We know that these are this struggle is will be ongoing. But we are excited about the progress that we have made for divestment, and negotiations are progressing. And we know that we will continue to fight in whatever way we can through direct action, through mobilization, as well as the faculty across the campus have largely taken it on themselves to respond through various passing various divestment resolutions on their own. And we know that this is huge because it shows a united sentiment across every college that we have at our university, every school that we have at our university. It sends a clear message that the call for divestment is a unified one, and that the weaponization of questions of anti-Semitism are, absolutely irrelevant in considering that the death machine that our university is in bed with cannot continue, and we refuse to let it continue. We have examples of divestment from fossil fuels that our university had divested from, and supposedly in 2015. We also found out that they lied about one of their companies, Chevron, that they are still invested in. So we have precedent, and we are able to move forward through that precedent, and we are able to continue to push harder and harder for the language of Palestine and Gaza to be included specifically in any sort of resolution, or not resolution, any sort of divestment planning that continues with the investment committee. So we are somewhat optimistic, and I will also say that the new school, we kind of still are excited about this, but a few days ago we
I don't know what happened to the new school. Bashar, are you with us? Can you speak? Oh my God, Bashar is back in the car. Jesus, this guy doesn't sit down. Okay, Sunil's calling back.
Can you hear me?
Yes, but Sunil's back now. Can you, Bashar, can you sit the fuck down somewhere? No, I'm joking. Can you sit somewhere, because we need to hear from you right after Sunil's finished. Sunil, you got cut off. I apologize. I don't know exactly, but it's been about like 30 seconds. If you can wrap up, and then we'll go to Bashar, and then to our friends from UCSC. You're muted.
Can you hear me? Oh, sorry, 1 second. Can you hear me? Okay, yeah, last point. 2 days ago, students and faculty together essentially took over what was called the Welcome Center, which we renamed the Lama Jamus Center, and are currently occupying all 7 floors of the entire building and controlling both the entrances and exits to this building, which is in New York a first for the encampments, at least having lasted 3 days or so, taking Colombia's model as well. And so we are excited about the opportunities that provides us as a base where we are able to control who we are allowed, how we can open up our encampment to the community without having to go through security. And it's kind of incredible just to have an entire building, 7 floors. It's very exciting and beautiful moment. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm so grateful to share space with you.
Thanks, Sunil. We'd love for you to come back to share with us developments throughout the summer, as well as next fall, because maybe it's news to some people, but it's not news to some of us here, or probably all of us, that this is not 2008 and 9. This is not 2014. This is not 2018. And this is not 2021. For those of you who know the significance of these years, this is different, and we're not going to stop. We're not going to sit back. So we will see you all again, I'm sure. So stay with us right now if you can. We'll go to GMU, because Bashar, for a moment, he's actually indoors, and he will share with us a little bit about the suspensions that took place at GW and what happened in court before he takes off again. Tfaddal, Bashar.
I want to say that when I was in the car, I actually was unmuted, but for whatever it's worth, I'm here now. So yeah, I think Jenna spoke about the other like list of situations that we were going through in terms of encampments at the encampment, and I think that for the conversation around students, so we had been in the encampment for, I'd say, uh a couple days before they put the barrier. It was a day or two before the barricades came up. They came up on the second day, and during this time a number of students had started getting suspensions, and I think this was an opportunity for the university to coerce students to end up leaving the encampment, and this was a like a ploy essentially to limit the numbers of students there, to get those 8 students out, and then obviously they noticed that there was 30 some students there. They weren't all GW students, but they did this on purpose, obviously, to start like lowering and dwindling the numbers. It didn't work. The 8 students who were suspended remained in the encampment. And when the barricades fell the same week, but towards the end of the week on that Sunday, more and more students started ushering into the space, and it became harder for them to suspend more and more students. But it was clear that they're using a bunch of really awkward tactics to suspend students. They had GW police with their cameras on, their body cameras on, and them use their phones to walk really awkwardly around students. And we started seeing this as they kind of, at the time, again, when the barricade was up, that the students started realizing, oh, this is very awkward. Why are they moving around us in this way, in this manner? But it's clear that they're using their body cameras to record student faces to kind of get them on camera, and then dictate who was a GW student, who was not. So following that, as a number of students at encampments experienced harsh arrests, what we saw happen at the end of the GW encampment, which is again coalition led. It was 8 schools that came together and banded together to structure the encampment. What had happened was a number of students were arrested. I think 20 some students were arrested and given different days of court hearings, and different arraignments. I was one of the students arrested. I'm not a GW student, but we were arrested and given different days to go back to court. I had my arraignment this Wednesday and was given a stay away order for a large like portion of Foggy Bottom GW area, which was not where the encampment happened whatsoever. But again, it is a tactic to kind of like structure yourself in a way to fearmonger, to stop students from going into the space. Although the stay away order is not permanent, then we were given a return to court days, so we have to go back to court. Where we will, continuously fight the system. And I think what the arraignment taught a lot of students is they're seeing the system work in the most atrocious of ways. Anyone in that arraignment call essentially saw DC court work and structure itself in a way where we were essentially seeing the system crumble. They couldn't comprehend that 200 plus people were there in support of the students, in support of students for Palestine, and they didn't know what they were doing. And many times in the Zoom call or in the WebEx call, they didn't know who was representing who, and who was who was charged with what, and what was their court number. They didn't have any of that. I think it was more of an indication also for students that were there that were like kind of concerned and worried that they shouldn't be worried because the system is flawed inherently, and it's a problem for the students, especially for the 8 students who are suspended. But when we talk to them, their morale is very high. They know what they're doing is for a greater cause, and I said this earlier, but we do this all for Gaza. Gaza is our compass. And they understand that this is a small price to pay for essentially fighting imperialism and fighting Zionism. With that said, it's not an easy feat to be arrested and or then suspended. So in a place where you have to get a degree and you have to get your education, that becomes a question, right? Like what's next as me as a student who is now suspended? How do I engage with that? But again, there are, as we said earlier, also the community has been very strong. We've been getting a large number of support, legal support, community support, and this has made this process for a lot of students in this area a lot more supportive and a lot easier to bear the burden of a suspension. But again, I think for everyone here, I think we accept that there comes risk with the actions that we take if we're going to be strong in our principle and be principled in our struggle for Gaza and for Palestine.
Thank you, Bashar. Really appreciate this. I've witnessed Bashar and Jana and our GMU remarkable students do heroic things at George Mason, at GW. I saw Bashar running things at GW, making sure everything is in order and just being exemplary in the type of approach, not just the cause, not just the values we believe in, but the approach to doing things. So it's extremely inspiring to everybody who is watching, and of course this is also something that others at GW were doing, which is why we are so upset and mad with the portrayals that we sometimes see on mainstream media and corporate media. Thank you, Bashar. Again, we're going to go to UCSC for the brave people running and working with the encampments and leading protests. And then we are going to go to Helsinki. Yes, Helsinki. We have a call from Helsinki University, which I shared with everyone, has been under attack by counter protests. They're with us. They came in and probably will join back in just a second. Before we do this, however, let me just share with you that this is the third event that we're having after the first two, in which we hosted students from, at this point, more than 20 universities. You can see it on the screen now. You can find all the information at palestineincontext.com under a student rising category in the menu, so you can catch up with all of these videos if you like, and come back to join us also next week for more on this series, as well as in defense of academic freedom. So let's go back to our UCSC folks. I'll let you decide how you would like to introduce your names, but thank you for being with us and for your patience. It's all you.
Okay, sorry. Hi. You want to go first?
Hi, I'm Fleabag.
And I'm Lila. Sorry.
Yes, we're looking forward to hear from you about your experience at UCSC in terms of the encampments and what has been the response and where you're at this point in terms of these protests and your action.
Hi. Sorry about that. We're about 2 weeks into our encampment right now. At the beginning, admin has been like, they're obviously like, we're being really like surveilling us, but they weren't automatically like threatening to use like police force, I guess. They ended up hiring their own security to sort of like
Their own private security, which is High Rock. And at first it was just nighttime, night shifts, and now they do day shifts. And they've been harassing and mocking and bullying basically every safety person who's on watch. They just dropped little leaflets yesterday.
Not High Rock, the school.
Not High Rock,
that admin. Okay, so we have admin who've been in contact with us. They don't want to use police force right away, but they've just been sort of surveilling us. So they put up new security cameras around the encampment. There is one that's directly just like facing students, which is why we're always masked now. But we've been using masks just to like hide people's identities. And it started at the encampment. They just had hired security to watch students, and now they're all over campus. So whenever we plan disruptions or escalations, there's always High Rock security at those places. There was recently a luncheon, which is students had liberated the dining halls so people could get free meals, and they had hired High Rock security to watch, like, to make sure that doesn't happen again. And they're on every single part of campus now. Like, they're at the library. They're at like where classes are being held as well. Yesterday there was like a biotech industry fair, and they had like companies that were in support of Israel that operate in Israel, and we went to go shut down that industry fair. And they had locked the doors so we wouldn't be able to get into the building, and they had let specific people in without even knowing if they were in there for the industry fair or not, but like they basically profiled people to let them in or not. We also recently we've been 2 weeks out, and we've been in contact with the labor union with the graduate students on our campus, and they had authorized to vote for a strike. So statewide, the UAW has adopted almost all of the UCSC demands on our campus for statewide labor strike. So the graduate students, we're planning, hopefully, inshallah, next week, we will be going on a strike with the encampment, with the graduate students. So we have labor behind us now with our demands, with our encampment, and we're hoping that the school will actually go forward with negotiations past what we've been able to do, I guess. But yeah, that's what it's been looking like on our campus right now.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you coming in. I know you were quite busy just recently, and we will come back to you at the end. Muriam and Jairo will be just speaking with everyone who is here, and there will be another rep joining us about what next, basically paths forward. In the meantime, let me introduce our friends from Helsinki. It says "Oh yes" on their name because people were asking me Helsinki. I'm like, yes, it is Helsinki. So thank you guys from the other continent. You are the first to join us from outside the United States. We are very excited that you are with us, and we would love to hear your experience. I know that you were just subjected to a counter protest, and I know it's late in Finland, so I'll leave you. The floor is yours.
Hello. Yes, regards from Helsinki. Can you hear us okay?
Yes,
Good.
you might want to bring the phone closer, which means you guys have to get closer to each other, which is okay. It's going to be okay.
Okay, yeah. Um, well,
So yeah,
what's been happening?
we've been camping now here for since Monday the 6th, basically, and we're demanding that the University of Helsinki cut its ties to Israeli academic institutions like elsewhere. Here it's about, for example, suspending or cutting ties through exchange programs, also by divesting from Israeli companies on the BDS list, and also withdrawing from EU-funded projects where Finnish universities are collaborating with Israeli academic institutions. And thus far, we haven't faced police violence, although we have faced that previously in the fall when 13 of our activists were arrested when the University of Helsinki called the police on us. And so the encampment has been quite peaceful, I'd say. There has been Zionist counter-protests. Today there was a bigger one, but even before there have been individuals obviously here harassing us and making things harder, but we have managed quite well. And in terms of the kind of negotiations or how the university has reacted, the university board is meant to come out with a statement about what it's going to do in terms of the academic boycott, and we're waiting for what that contains and then acting accordingly.
Yeah. And we have had plenty of students and non-students alike, which has been a very good one. I'm not a student, but I'm working here in solidarity and as an ally. And actually I'd like to show you a bit of the encampment. It's looking great and people
Please
are
do.
coming in support. I don't know if I could do it this way or maybe turn.
She hung up by mistake, I think. Whatever she is, awesome. Yes.
Here's the encampment. Now people are following this teaching session from the Columbia University. So it's great to see that the encampments are collaborating and communicating and knowledge is being spread. I'd say in terms of or concerning the Zionist counter-protests, they haven't been a big threat or a big harassment. We have been organized here very well, and today there were many people taking like de-escalation roles and taking care of the security, and also the police surprisingly was very well in place. Like they were keeping the Zionists away from our encampment. yeah, we're waiting for the statement to come out from the board. Yesterday we had this spontaneous but still quite a big protest at the main building of the University of Helsinki, just during the board was having their meeting, and we wanted to put really, like, physically be there and put pressure on them to make the right decisions.
Can you turn the camera around one more time? I want to put you on a bigger screen if it's possible. To the encampments.
Yes, sure. I'm sorry for my phone is really being here and there, so the camera
Sweet.
is a bit bad.
Sweet.
But yeah.
Jairo, do you have any questions for them before? I know you have to leave soon. Do you have any questions for people in Europe doing the good work?
I don't have any specific questions right now.
Are you anti-Europe? Habibi. Okay, thank you so much, folks from Finland. Can you stay with us a bit longer?
We can stay with you, yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Jairo, I know you have to leave. Do you have any parting words for these people who are basically our, paving the path for a future that you and I, many others, are also looking forward to?
I'm just immensely grateful. I mean, just to even be in these conversations. As I mentioned before, students are the ones leading the path. Students are the ones teaching us what it means to really organize in militant terms, to organize in ways that go beyond these superficial, symbolic gestures, as I mentioned as well. And so it's just, I think, a time for us as faculty to reflect upon what is our role, even if it's a rear guard position that we have to take. At times, it's easy for us to kind of tell or inform students what to do, but in this case, it's pretty clear that we're the ones that have a lot to learn from students, and I'm just immensely grateful to all of you.
Thank you, Jairo. I know that you have to leave, so feel free to duck out anytime you like. Our last speaker is, can I use the name that you just entered from SJP? Okay, is Nida from SJP National. If you can share with us what you joined us to share, I will leave it to you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you guys so much for having me. From what I've seen so far on this call, it's an awesome conversation. So my name is Nida. I'm with National SJP. And, over the past few weeks, what we've seen really is we've seen the student movement take, the broader movement by storm with its initiative, with its dedication to escalate and apply pressure on a global level for a ceasefire. Right. And so I think it's been inspiring, and it's almost been like reigniting the fire for people everywhere, students, community members, and like the movement more largely to continue in the struggle towards ceasefire during a time when we saw that momentum was decreasing for the struggle. So on our end, what we've been seeing is chapters, continuing to escalate and to, kind of raise the ceiling for us all. And what we've been doing is just supporting in whatever way we can. And that's the thing about the student movement, is that students are so autonomous, and they've really taken initiative on how they want to apply pressure on their campuses, on their institutions, on their local governments to really push for ceasefire and push for liberation. And what we've been doing is just kind of playing a helping role, and we're learning from the students as well, more than anything else. So that's one thing that I think makes the student movement so unique, is that like the students have just taken on the role of defining what is their role in this moment, and how are they going to step up to the plate at a time when we're experiencing 7 months of genocide, right? And the situation is only becoming more and more dire for the rest of for our people in Gaza, and the rest of the world has seen, mobilizations for months. But what have the results of these mobilizations been? right? And it was brushed on just previously, but for decades now, I would say for the past 2 decades, what we've seen on college campuses more broadly have been symbolic wins for the movement, right? But now there's a shift. We're going from symbolic wins to we want material wins. And if we don't get these material wins, we're going to be in your face until we get them. And I think that's a very significant change that's setting the tone for the rest of the movement in a way that we haven't seen in the better half of the last 2 decades. So I'm happy to answer any questions about what we've been seeing and what we anticipate next. I will say that encampments are still going strong depending on where folks are in the world. And a lot of what we're seeing is that a lot of students are choosing, if they're not getting their demands met, they're choosing to, end their encampments in a dignified way. They're not leaving, they're defending their encampment until their last, until the last moment that they possibly can. Students are being swept, are being charged with stuff like criminal trespass and all these other BS charges, because that's the lengths that they're willing to take to defend their encampments. And they're not accepting half-baked deals. We don't want a deal where you acknowledge that there is a need for a ceasefire, but you're not actually removing your funds from the corporations that are facilitating a genocide, And so that's the trend that we're seeing right now. And more largely, as summer approaches, what we anticipate is students are going to take this energy from the campus to the streets. And in many ways, they've already inspired that action in the streets. And so that's what's exciting to look forward to. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions. I know what I spoke about was a bit broad, but thank you guys for having me.
Okay, I think that Bassam maybe had something to attend to. So I guess I'll just say a few words. I want to reiterate kind of what a learning experience it's been for faculty as well, and how inspired we've been watching the discussions and teach-ins and forms of community care. And I think the hope was to also think about next steps. And so something that I wanted to talk about is going back to something Jack and the UAW organizers were talking about, which is how do we make this a multi-pronged struggle after all of the danger that so many of you have exposed yourself to? What can the role of graduate workers, of faculty, and of lecturers be? And how do we both center Palestine and also realize that this has shown us the kind of corrupt nature of the institutions that we work in, that this is something that brings us all together. And so I just wanted to say that, and perhaps this is for another Jadaliyya teach-in, but the same kind of conversations that have been happening among grad workers and union members has also been happening among faculty who don't think of themselves as workers. And so if we're going to think about labor and all of this, faculty tend to think of themselves, and we are this really privileged category. But one of the things that's been decisive in the past strikes at UCSC was for faculty members to understand not to scab. And that seems like a very clear thing, but faculty don't think of themselves as workers. So the notion of not picking up struck labor, for example, has been really key. And at the UCSC and now the UC-wide strike, the question of labor withholding for grads has been about final grades, about not submitting final grades. And so, I think it's a moment when we all have to think about what pressure we can put on and where strategically together, because the heroic efforts of the encampments will at some point regroup. They will find other forms. They will continue to defend as far as they can. But I think it's also time for us all to realize that different groups need to come together and think about the struggle. So it's not just about these kind of amazing actions that we've been seeing, and to keep broadening the movement. So I guess that was my 2 cents. And also just to say again, how amazing it's been to see different kinds of mobilizations from those close here at UCSC, UC-wide, and even internationally. So just thank you all. Yeah, Bassam, Waynek.
I'm right here. All right. We just got joined by somebody from CUNY. Would you like to share with us a few things before we wrap up? We just want to make sure that you get your say.
Hi, Salam. Can you hear me? We're good? Okay. Hey, everybody. I wanted to hop on really quick just to say hello. I love this entire segment. I love everybody organizing this, so I wanted to definitely stop by and say hello. Yeah, I'm from CUNY. My name is Hadika, and we have been going strong here at CUNY, despite the fact that they took down the tents. Our movement is still staying strong, and I go to City College, so the specific campus in which the CUNY encampments took place, but um, the of course CUNY wide is a more broad system, and so we've been organizing all throughout CUNY and definitely experiencing our fair share of repression as we actually shut down our entire campus with our encampments. So our classes at CCNY ended up being online for the following week after the encampments were raided, and we went back to in-person classes this Monday. And so, of course, we showed out, and we had a rally. Our administration has been so fun. They have uh, brought up some arbitrary rules, coming up with laws out of nowhere, claiming that on our public property we need a permit to protest, which has never been the case. They have followed our students who have been involved with our rallies, with our demonstrations off of campus, onto campus. They have been attempting to intimidate us with suspensions and arrests, but it's not working. And I definitely just wanted to come on and say that I've come to find that we're just very familiar with these tactics at this point, and we are not at all afraid anymore. When it comes to them sending their emails to be like, we need a meeting with you guys because you did something, like we're very aware that, we can just ignore these things now. And whenever they try to say that, oh, you violated this law, this, that. We have the infrastructure, we have the lawyers, we know that we are not in violation of anything. And I think I just wanted to come to just bring the sentiment of the fact that we are very strong and we are very, very much not backing down and very unintimidated right now. And I hope that I know that that's kind of trickling throughout all of our SJPs, everybody here. And I'm really, really proud to be a part of this.
Thank you, Alika, and everyone who's here. Let me just also be conscious that you guys have been here for almost 2 hours, so we're going to sign off with a question, a quick question. You can join in, or you could just say goodbye at the end of basically a question about what next. Anything that you have in mind about what is likely to happen next in your environment, especially that we are entering summer. So you can start. Let's start with Helsinki because they're very far away, and I don't want the connection to drop. If you can tell us what next, and maybe just a word about to what extent your other colleagues in other universities in Finland or nearby, what they are doing potentially.
Well, now we're in this phase of waiting for the statement, although our hopes are not too high concerning it. I personally don't think that the university will meet the demands, and therefore I think soon it will be time for escalation in Helsinki. And yeah, our discussions have been around that, like what to do next and how to really disrupt the everyday or like the faculty something. I'm as in terms of the movement here in Helsinki, I think we're building it stronger. We're establishing chapters and working groups soon. So although the encampment would end, the work will not end, and like putting pressure and getting more and more organized and in better ways organized. I think that's what comes in my head.
Yeah, and also I think at the same time, while we are learning from all of the other encampments in the US and around the world, I think the universities are also, and the administrations are learning from each other about, counterinsurgency tactics and how to kind of tackle encampments and avoid meeting the demands and cutting ties to Israel. And so we're very much kind of fighting time in terms of the semester ending and trying to think of ways also to organize and to mobilize and to disrupt the university in other ways. But yeah, as Iris said, we don't expect that the university will meet our demands, and then we have to act accordingly and move toward escalation and disruption.
Thank you both so
And
much. Yeah, go ahead.
any kind of advice or regards to what should be happening next, for example, in the European countries and cities? I am very open to hear that, if there's any advice or ideas.
Absolutely. We will be in touch with you. I will be connecting with you after, and we will also soon be addressing these efforts and actions beyond the US. But thank you for joining us. We're going to go to the rest just to hear word. We only have like 1 minute max from each if you'd like to share. But first, let me say goodbye to Muriam because apparently there's a fire, not a real fire, that she has to put out. Muriam, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your views and contributing to this teach-in / event with your grace. Do you want to say goodbye or anything?
Just thanks to all of you. Thank you, Bassam, as always, for making this space. And we'll be in touch to be continued.
Thanks, Muriam. Take care. Take care, Azisti. Let's go to UCSC for just a quick word. We're going to go to UCSC and then GMU and then VCU and then SJP and then CUNY for a quick goodbye and something about what might be next.
What's next for us is definitely the UAW and what they do moving forward with their strike, as well as escalation.
Yeah.
For in terms of summer, we are packing up, and then we're gonna put our energy into planning for fall and the following quarters.
But also like moving outside of the institution as well to like locally, but what we learn locally we can bring back to like together into the fall quarter as well. But yeah.
Thank you so much, guys. Please stay in touch, okay? We'd love to have you back, and we'll continue the conversation. Bashar, and then VCU, and then SJP, and then CUNY last, because they came last. And I fixed it. You are not UCSC. I actually erased UCSC, and I wanted to type CUNY, but I typed UCSC. I have no idea why. Bashar.
Yeah, thank you again for this opportunity. I think we're working in a very different moment in history in which, for us, at least in the DMV, we're very interconnected, all students across fronts. And I think what is required of us is to continue, because regardless of what happens at the end of the semester, the end of the summer, or the start of the fall, there's work to be done in that regard. And speaking for our specific university, we've had serious conversations last semester with the Board of Trustees president, the rector, the vice rector, and the president about more serious, our demands were clear and we gave them our demands and we didn't falter on our demands, but we're working more closely this semester and we were with structuring coming into the fall about actual serious steps to be taken to slowly start divest, whether that's questions of transparency, whether that's questions of detailing the endowment funds and investment funds, but being more clear in those numbers. And those are serious steps that we need to be taking, that we also said in the coalition amongst the DMV schools, that these are steps we need to take, and pressuring maybe, what the GW encampment was pressuring GW. And all the DMV schools to do the same. I think it's also, I think, really important to say that we are in DC, so we can't not focus our attention to the Imperial Core in the heart of the empire. So coming Saturday we have the Nakba Day protest to commemorate 76, essentially. anniversary of the mass atrocities that the state of Israel and the Zionist state has continuously been doing for 76 years. So again, that's like a very literal next step. So there's that. But I think again, just to speak on what CUNY and the rep from NHJP had said, like we're not scared. Like we'll take it. We'll take it day by day, and we're going to see what comes next. But we're not afraid of the repercussions. So again, I take my energy from everyone here, and I'm just glad to be in this moment together.
Thank you, Bashar. We also take our energy from you. VCU, do you have any, is there an outlook for summer or next fall? Is there a plan to continue with the work?
I was gonna say, due to like the speed to which our encampment was like disbanded, and a couple days later, like the semester ended. I'm not sure about specific next steps like for VCU, but I would be just interested in observing how other encampments and other schools go about doing things this summer, or what plans are for next semester, and bringing those back to VCU, because I know the SJP is only getting more active and there's not really any plans of stopping soon. So anything that I'd be able to learn and take back with me would just be ideal.
All right, would love to have you back as well, VCU. And there was another person from VCU who was going to join. She was arrested as well, and she is held up right now, and she's probably not going to be able to join us. So thank you again. SJP National, you're next, and then we'll end with CUNY and let people go. We literally have 3 minutes to end the feed.
Okay, I'll be very quick. So I want to echo what everybody said, right? Like encampments may be swept, right? But the work doesn't end. And it's important for us to understand this moment for what it is. Encampments are a tactic, right? They're a tactic that's embedded in a larger tactic, embedded in a larger, struggle for liberation. And so we have an understanding that even if encampments are swept, which they will be, this comes to an end, but our work lives on. What's important, I think, for next steps is how do we take this moment of heightened momentum, of heightened energy, and turn it into a sustained sustained plan to build power and organize, right? Our movement is much longer than this moment. And I think that's what we're seeing chapters, SJP chapters and students all across the world do, is recognize that the summertime is going to be a time where they build leadership, where they take their energy off the campus and into the streets, into their communities, right? Teach them what they have learned on campus in the last few weeks. But more importantly, again, turn this moment of heightened energy into something sustained, right? We need to build power because we have larger goals that we're working towards. One thing that I think we're all hoping to see is more unity, more cohesion amongst the student movement, so that we are moving in a way, that has clear vision and clear strategy. And I think that's, inshallah, what we're working towards and what we're seeing develop. I'll leave it at that. Thank you guys so much for having me. You guys are all really amazing. For the short time that I've been on this call, I've learned a lot.
Thanks, Nida. And you can, like everyone else, you can go back to the feed. It's on Jadaliyya's Twitter feed, as well as Jadaliyya's YouTube feed at youtube.com/Jadaliyya. This and everything else that we have been doing for the past 8 months almost at palestineandcontext.org. Okay. Hadiqa, you are between us and freedom.
Okay, how much time do I have? Never mind, I'm not going to ask.
28 minutes. No, I'm joking. You have a minute.
Okay. Well, I mean, where did we start? We started with petitioning, then we went to voting, then we went to protesting and rallying, and then it became sit-ins, and then it became disruptions, and then it became encampments, and our demands are still not met. Palestine is still not free. Our universities are still not divested. So of course, this only means we're going to escalate even further. And that is a threat, like there is leverage and there is power to the movement that we're pushing. We have power as students, we have power as people to get our demands met and to divest, and that's what we're going to do by any means necessary. And I want to also echo what GMU was saying, being in the Imperial Beast in DC. We're also in the Imperial Beast in New York City, because we know that there's so many moving parts, so many gears turning. And so there's a huge responsibility that we know that we have here, And we've seen that, especially with the New York City encampments, that it's not an NYU encampment, it's not a Columbia encampment, it's not a CUNY encampment, it's a people's encampment. And we have made it very clear to blur the lines between the city and the people and the students, because we know that this is the people's revolution. And so even if the semester ends, we know that we're going to continue. We know that this movement will not die out. We know that this movement is only going to grow stronger, and we've only built momentum and power with the entire city around us, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
Thank you, Hadiqa. Thanks, VCU, GMU, SJP, Helsinki, UCSC, Brown, and all of the other folks who have joined us today. This has been remarkable. I am hoping that we will not be derailed by all sorts of things, including actually the kind of things that have been happening here and there in terms of, different approaches, which I think are to be expected, but there is such a drive to move forward that they will not actually derail all of us. I will be sharing with folks, we will be sharing with folks how all of this that we're doing is going to be produced, published on PalestineInContext.org. We're going to be taking, curating some segments from different conversations that are actually useful for at least the community that's interested in maintaining and continuing with the protests. Nothing is going to stop the vigor that you all have and that we all have. So that is something that people can be sure of. I am very thankful, infinitely thankful to all of you, to all your courage, and to really opening the door to a future that honestly, back when I was organizing and being arrested and all of that, and starting the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, we did not dream of. So thank you all so much. All power to you. All fucking power to you. Thank you all.